Here we go. It's PICO time. Thanks for listening to the Fishing Guide podcast. We're here in the studio. I don't know.
Both of us at the same time.
I don't know if this is a studio, but
it is now.
We're right on the shores of Beaver Lake. Now, this is actually the first one where Mitch showed up, and because he's having to do and make all y'all's lures, so I
tell you what, y'all, somebody needs to sit down and eat some turkey. Just kind of let me catch up a little bit.
I'm afraid they're going to go fishing because they're
I know. They'll stop and eat turkey today and then make turkey sandwiches and go back to the lake.
Yeah. So it's Thanksgiving week, and I thought this would be a perfect time since we had Mitch here. We could talk about the history of PICO Lures and how he ended up being the owner of PICO Lures and kind of the direction they're going. Maybe he'll tease us a little bit about something new he might be coming out with. I don't know if there is, but if there is,
there's always something.
We'll find.
Yeah, there's always something on the horizon. That's the cool thing about fishing.
That's right. So start us off. Tell us what you know about the history of PICO Lures.
Okay. Well, I've had to learn a whole lot of this history from old sports writers that were learning it from their grandkids.
Wow.
Or from their grandpas, you know. I mean, that's how long PICO's been around. A guy named Fred Nichols started hand carving lures down on the Corpus Christi area.
Right.
He started this back in the early 20s, actually.
Wow.
And it was the Nichols Lure Company. So some of the oldest in what they consider the PICO collection is actually Nichols Lure Company baits before he turned it into the Padre Island Company, which is what PICO Lures stands for.
Uh-huh.
He was hand carving these baits and everything, and then it becomes such a business with him that he incorporated it in 1933 as PICO Lures, stands for the Padre Island Company.
Wow.
Yep.
And so, who was the owners, and who have been the owners since?
Oh my, there's the Nichols and all of, and you know, going down through the family and everything. It had changed ownership 4 or 5 times throughout all of that, and I can't just put them all in chronological order.
Right.
It had finally landed in the hands of a man named Steve Frick, and it had kind of gotten to where the original bait that started the company was about the only thing left that he was still producing, and that's the PICO Pop.
Right.
You know, it's that name itself, the PICO Pop, is almost synonymous with one another. If you type PICO, it's like you didn't finish your sentence, you know,
right.
Unless you've got Pop on after it. Followed real close by PICO Perch. So he had it before I bought it, and then I bought it 3.5, almost 4 years ago now.
Wow.
And a whole lot. It was like uncovering a treasure trove of history. I'm telling you what. You've seen some of the stuff I've got.
Right.
Someday I'll show you the rest of it. Over the years, PICO they've gone from wooden lures, you know, with you know, the old school paints where, you know, there was like 6 colors on a wheel and that's all you had, you know.
Wow.
And but all of that has evolved with the technology and everything. You know, with the advent of injection molding, you know, we're talking, you know, late 30s, early 40s.
Right.
That's when some of these hard plastic baits started coming into existence. And throughout all of that, PICO Lures back then, I've got some old-timey pictures of production lines that would just boggle your mind of how many people used to make a living out of this country. And they were making baits not only for themselves, but for other lure companies around the world too.
I see.
You know, and I mean, it turned into not only just a PICO Lures, but an OEM manufacturing facility and stuff. And throughout the years, they have been involved in just about every aspect of every kind of lure that you can make for anybody, anytime, anywhere. And we're you know, all of that with ownership changes and trends in the industry and everything. Well, this has died down. This has gotten bigger, and I basically took over a skeleton of what it used to be at one time.
Right.
So, you know, I've been in the lure business for a long time, and basically the lure business that I was leaving at about that time was becoming a skeleton of its own.
Right.
Okay. The way we were doing business 4 years ago and the baits that we were making to fish with 4 years ago, just kind of, that's kind of another another timeline on the calendar. Is like, well, here's where things start changing again.
Right.
So over this past 4 years, I have revamped and revitalized some of the original molds and stuff, because things like this PICO Perch and the PICO Pop, these are the original baits that have become basics. I mean, everybody out there builds a topwater bait. Well, guess who built the first one? In production. Right. And the same with the PICO Perch and everything. I've got books going back into the 40s and 50s and stuff where there was PICO Perch is listed as a manufacturer, but the name brand on the bait's on the other side of the page, and it may be somebody out of St. Louis, Missouri. I mean, it's like, and so, I mean, and the lure company works a little bit like that today, but still, when you buy an absolute PICO Perch, it's in the mold.
Right.
The mold itself, it is molded into the side of the bait. It's not stamped on it or anything else. So, the knockoffs and duplicates over the last 50 years, they don't have that.
Right.
So the original PICO Perch, still a great bait. We're modernizing a lot of the colors and stuff, bringing them up into the modern era. But this fishing revolution that we're going through now, I remember when PICO Perch, you remember what a depth finder was when these baits came out?
Was it green box?
Oh, no, before that.
Was it a rock and a rope?
It was a spark plug on a string, yeah. So we've gone from that kind of technology on the boat. These lures have survived that time to where now we've got stuff that in basically World War II, it would have revolutionized the submarine industry. What we've got on a bass boat now. We've got radars and underwater radars and stuff that just boggles your mind. Well, the lure company's got to adapt to that.
Yeah, and so actually, you've taken the line from the lines was pretty small when you got it.
Right, we were basically down to the PICO Pop was about it. Yep.
And now you've brought in soft plastics and jig heads. Tell us now what all you have. You actually have a product catalog.
I do. We do for a fact in living color. It's kind of it's nostalgic to look at the original catalog they come out with. It was a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper folded over and printed on. Good and well, it's printed on one of them old hand crank mimeographs because it's all black and white and everything. And they folded over, and that's a 4-page catalog. But no, we took the old original side shad, the PICO Pop, the little Pop, which was one of the most sought after baits. When the phone number on the company changed, that was probably one of the most significant calls I got constantly day in, day out, was the small Pop.
Wow. And
then we got the PICO Perch back up and going and running these with modern plastics and everything. And so the formulas for weights and measures and everything kind of had to change from the kind of plastics they were built with in the 50s as to what we've got now. We've got better plastics now, but we've also got lighter plastics. So we've kind of got to alter some internals on the baits to keep, like the perch running on the proper angle and that kind of stuff. So we've got all that figured out. All those original baits are going. As we dive into the treasure trove of all that stuff, well, we've discovered that, hey, this old Texas trailer, a lot of demand for that out there. It's like, wow, it's like, so we've got that, we've got pieces and parts. We'll have that going in full blast by the first of the year.
Yeah, and if you don't know what a Texas trailer is, well, you'll have to just go to the website and check it out there. Or you can go to PICO's Facebook page, and you'll be able to find some videos and photos on it after the start of the year.
Well, right after the first of the year, we'll try to get you some underwater footage on that, because that's a very interesting thing. And just today, I mean, I've been hearing people talking about using a crankbait and a jig at the same time. And which is pretty good for the fall of the year and early spring. You can kind of keep everything slowed down. Well, guess what? This thing right here, was kind of made to do that,
right?
way back during World War II. So this is it's not a new idea, but what's old gets new again, and what's new turns old. So here we go.
So you have the hard baits, and now you have.
Yeah, well, since I bought the company, I've added a medium to deep diving crankbait to the lineup, and it was something that I worked on for a little while. I'd had the company about 6 months, and I started prototyping this, and sent a few prototypes out, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, where's ours? So within let's see, we started off with 6 colors, and that was in August, and I think by the first of the year I had 15 colors going, and that's been a total of 2 years ago, and now we have 35 colors.
Right.
So I've got 10 more. For those of you who are curious, I have 10 more laying on my desk for 2021. So that trend's going to carry right along, and you'll be happy to know that you guys out there that fish with them are generally the guys that are going to get the colors that you keep sending to me and asking for. So that's how a lot of, once you get a bait that works, the people out there will, you can either get mad or get glad they took your bait, sanded it off, and turned it a different color. Like, well, that's not what I made. Well, hey, guess what? You pay attention. The dude's got an idea, and if it works, they send them in the mail. It's like, So, when we put a new color out, trust me, it's caught fish before you ever even got to see a picture of it.
Yep. So now you have soft plastics.
Yep. We brought out a line of soft plastics for the crappie fishermen and stuff. We've got, the little shad type baits, a pointer shad. We've got a ring version of the shad we call the ring pointer shad. And it holds bait scents, like we're a distributor for the crappie.com's
slab sauce.
Yeah. And so it holds onto that real well. We've got some little piddle shads. We got quite a pretty good variety, really, of small plastic baits, and the jig heads to go with them. Painted or unpainted. And you're from your basic guy all the way up to your upper end Livescope and tournament anglers.
And so now you also have bass jigs.
Maybe.
You don't know?
Maybe. I've
been fishing with them.
I know you have. That is on the table. Yes, we both fished with them, and true to what I promise you is, if it don't work or if it's got flaws, it doesn't come to market. And right now, I think we got a pretty decent product. I just got to bring it to market. We'll have bass jigs, probably a swim jig.
The big thing was, of course, we used them up in Minnesota at La Crosse with Tom Monsieur, and actually used our jig heads. And
you cleaned me out.
They that wide gap football head jig is it's been used for everything from like finesse fishing with like cream, just a regular worm, finesse worm, or to using it like a football head jig, putting a skirt on it.
Oh so, with that screamer on it. Oh my!
Yeah,
that is a match made in heaven right now. I don't care whether you're on Bull Shoals or La Crosse, Wisconsin. That sucker will catch fish.
Yeah, and we know the one thing that we have to talk about is the hottest thing going, which he cannot keep in stock because everyone's buying them, and it makes sense. Is it's the Livescope,
right?
It's the Scope Eye jig head, and it's only going to get worse, Mitch. You're going to have one person that's just going to pour those jig heads because, the rumble. Two people. It won't be me. Yeah. That's all I know. Yeah. There's other companies that will be releasing their information and word and rumble on the street because we cannot confer or deny that they are coming out with it. But we've already seen on Facebook people are leaking out information that there's going to be a live sonar that's going to show that, and actually the iScope jig head that that PICO has, that's the bomb, isn't it?
That's true. And now right there's another example of how it's not the same world it was 4 years ago. And we're,
right.
as a company, we're trying to keep up with the technology and the way that people fish. We're sure not going to forget the guy that's standing down here on the bank and just wants to use a bobber and dunk a jig.
Right.
We've got marabou jigs, we've got bunny, but we got all of that kind of stuff. But as the technology changes and you're standing in the boat and you're trying to use your bank fishing gear to watch it on Livescope, and it doesn't really,
right.
it's not enough. It doesn't work. So we've sat down and we've made something that is made for that Livescope. But you know what? It works extremely well without Livescope.
Exactly.
I mean, it's as solid of a crappie jig as I have ever thrown in my life, and I've been throwing them since I was 6 years old. So,
yeah, you always tell the story of fishing with one and catching like 23 fish.
Well, I got to 22 that day before I lost. I could have got 23, but I lost it in a brush pile.
So it just holds on because of the keeper, because of the design.
It does, and if it'll hold on for me, because, you know, I don't mind shooting a few docks and stuff, but, boy, I tell you what, you know how my knees are. I have to wear knee pads to take pictures. But, you know, if I can just stand back here and if I can throw that thing up there and skip it 29 times up under there, that works for me. You can put some bait, but, you know, you can't do that with a normal jig head. You maybe once or twice, and you got to put a new body on it.
Exactly.
Man, you can, and, you know, there again, I'm not the most accurate caster in the world, so my jig may be skipping and banging and clanging and rapping and all this kind of grub's still on there.
Yeah.
Don't even have to push it back up on the hook.
Yep.
It holds a grub better than anything I've ever seen.
So we'll hold off with asking you about maybe a new product, but we'll go to so when you took over, you did not have any stores that was had PICO products in, right?
That's
there was no distribution.
There was no distribution. There was nothing but a little bitty piece of a website that was basically less than Facebook Market right now.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I'll never forget. I mean, we put these up for sale, and I guess it was June when I very first put. That may not even been 6, might have been 4 to start with. I put them up for sale in June, and all of a sudden everybody's wanting them and wanting them and wanting them. Well, we had to go down to ICAST and work in a booth down there. So I painted 100 of each of those colors, so that when I got back from ICAST, I'd be able to ship them out. Well, we're sitting down there at ICAST, and I'm watching the orders come through on my phone, and I'm like, uh-oh. We're gone for 5 whole days, and I came back and I think my wife took pictures of this for the memory book. We have quite the kitchen center island, kind of wrap around bar island, you know, workbench, you know.
Exactly.
And this thing's covered with lures as fast as I can paint them. I bring them in there, and she's putting on hooks and packaging them, and it was really nice and neat, you know. I mean, each color's got its own row of stuff, you know, and it was kind of an assembly line on the kitchen counter, and then it would wind up over by the toaster and the coffee maker for packaging.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was about. We had a lease on a building that we were supposed to have been in May, and we didn't get into that building until like September. So production was going in my garage and my kitchen table. That's hot and heavy.
I know a lot of great companies. That's actually how they just start. I mean, it starts in the garage. It starts in some guy that's got a dream or has this reality of putting it forth. And so you went from not having any. So how many states are you located in that have stores?
Let's see. We have stores in, I just got to kind of look at them. Now we got roughly 22.
Yeah. The Southeast mostly.
Yeah, the Southeast, but we got stores in the central north, you know, Michigan, Minnesota.
Right.
Up and through there. Wisconsin, definitely Wisconsin.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've done that. And so now you also went and you redesigned the website. How's the social media gone and the internet?
Well, the social media, now that you brought it up, has done very well for me. Yeah, it's all social media. I mean, a couple months ago, I had to go to the eye doctor, and they actually had an outdoor life in Iraq.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't even know they, or maybe it was a Field and Stream. I don't know. It was one of those two.
Right.
But I didn't even know they printed them anymore.
Right.
You know, so, you know, print media and all that stuff, it was great. And I love looking at that old stuff. But man, there's nothing like, if I can make a bait today, brand new color, whatever it is, and I want to show it to the world out there today, I need to be prepared for it in a major way, because it's it's going to get gone, you know, that quick. So that's another technological thing that we get to deal with. Technology demands that you do it one way, and when you can either be used by technology or use it. So
right. So we'll wait till after tackle time, and you can tell us maybe what you got cooking. But tackle time, of course, is sponsored by PICO Lures. Yeah. Big surprise, huh?
Imagine that. Yeah.
How's that? You know, PICO Lures was founded in 1933. Of course, now everyone knows the history of it with all the hard baits and the soft plastics and the bass jigs and the crappie jigs, and of course the scope eye jig that's hot.
Right.
And so we happen to have in the studio what I think is the most popular bait.
This was one of the original styles and colors from PICO. I mean, that color has been around.
And tell them what it is.
That is the PICO Perch.
And it's then blue eye.
That is the blue-eyed perch. We
Blue-eyed
make a blue-eyed pop, too. That was one of the more that was actually one of Guido Hibden's favorite color combinations on Lake of the Ozarks.
Wow. If
you want to read his obituary, he was actually credited with his first two sponsors of being Cream Lures and PICO Lures.
Wow.
Yeah. Is that amazing or what? But the blue-eyed pop and the blue-eyed perch were two of his favorite color lures.
Kind of tackle time's more of a history lesson today,
yep.
but that's the deal. So you still sell these, and you have them in multiple different colors.
Yeah, we do. I think we've got 13 or 14, 15 colors, something like that now.
Yep. So we waited around. Let's hear what you got to say.
For tackle time?
No, let's hear what you got to say about the secret, like some secret you might have coming out. Well,
we've kind of taken this scope eye thing, and we've kind of adjusted around with some bass jigs for like swimming the cream screamers and stuff.
Uh-huh.
We've kind of got some of that going on. We're going to look at like a skirted model and an unskirted model for swim jigs, for swim baits.
Right.
We got that. We've got skirted bass jigs kind of laying on the table.
That's good. We've been talking about that for about 2-3 years.
Yeah, so. I know. But, I make enough for me and you to use, and it never seems to go much further, does it?
I don't think other people need to use this stuff. I'm good with just using it myself.
It's like, So, we got several things on the table, but we won't release them till we know they're right.
There you go. There you have it.
In other words, when we're tired of catching fish on them, we'll let y'all in on it.
We make sure they catch fish first. If they only saw what some of my crankbaits look like,
oh my gosh,
they could not imagine the torment that we put them through here.
Yeah, that's the deal, folks. These crankbaits aren't just for trolling. This guy don't even troll them. He wears them out casting, and I mean just teeth marks and teeth marks and teeth marks. So. Cast them dudes. They'll catch stripers. They'll catch walleye. They'll catch bass.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our show, Mitch.
Right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
And we have to tell them, subscribe. If you're listening to this on the podcast show, make sure you subscribe. And
hit that little bell thingy everybody's always begging you to do.
There you go. There you have it. Hey, thanks for listening to our show. And
tell us what you want to hear about next week.
Keep your hooks sharp and your lures in the water. My favorite part here.